Fate Therapeutics is focused on the modulation of endogenous stem cells for the treatment of disease, using conventional methods of small molecule and biologics to modulate the function of stem cells that are endogenous in the human body. The treatment paradigm is through either the differentiation of cells to a mature phenotype, typically known as a tissue, or through proliferation, where a disease may be caused because there's an underlying lack of cell type. When we talk about modulating cell fate, which is where the name of the company Fate Therapeutics comes from, we really try to break it down into three different types of modulation. One, again, is pure proliferation, or increasing the cell number. And that can be done with small molecules by impacting a number of pathways which are known to be in stem cells, specifically the Wnt, hedgehog, and notch pathways. Another way is to cause those stem cells to differentiate. For example, a hematopoietic stem cell into a progenitor of white blood cells. And then the third is actually to modify the function of the stem cell, taking a cell that perhaps would have become a liver cell and modulating it so that now it becomes, for example, an islet cell that might be useful in treatment of diabetes. There's at least 4 different uses for induced pluripotent stem cells, or iPSCs. The first could be cell therapy, where you're taking an induced pluripotent cell, differentiating it into a mature cell type that could be transplanted into a patient to treat disease, such as islet cells for diabetes or neurons for neurodegenerative diseases. A second is that you could differentiate those iPSCs into a cell type which might be interesting to study for safety of drugs. Cell types that might be interesting for that would be hepatocytes or liver cells, because one of the reasons drugs fail in the clinic is because of unwanted liver toxicity or cardiac toxicity. A third opportunity for iPSCs is to actually differentiate them into diseased cell types, which would be a better model system for discovery of new small molecules to treat the underlying disease. And what we're focusing on is the fourth, which is actually to recapitulate a cell type that we can use in discovery to see how you would modulate that stem cell as a therapy for a disease. Our lead program, which is focused on hematopoietic stem cells, is actually in the clinic treating patients as we speak. One of the challenges with the treatment is that traditionally you need to match the donor of the cells to the patient, typically looking at HLA markers on the cells, meaning that there is a lack of sufficient cells to treat the patient. So in this case, we're looking at proliferation of the hematopoietic stem cells, as well as increasing their performance, so you can hopefully help treat the patients with fewer cells. In our first clinical experience, the clinical study which is underway, we're actually using allografts, which are from cord blood units that have been donated to treat patients that are receiving those hematopoietic stem cells. We're hopeful that we'll be able to have at least safety data before the end of the year. There's multi-phases to Fate, and when it comes to modulation of stem cells, whether that's prior to transplant or stem cells that are endogenous in the human body, we believe that we have a unique freedom to operate, as well as we're generating a lot of intellectual property which will be strategic for the company in the future. On the other face of Fate is the work that we're doing with induced pluripotent stem cells. And without making any broad statements regarding intellectual property, we have licensed in several portfolios of patents from some of the leading institutions that have been working in induced pluripotency for the last 10 years. We like to believe that we don't have a multifaceted competitor. What we're focusing on with small molecule modulators of stem cell function we believe is novel, and using small molecules and biologics really is powerful, because that's where there's a lot of experience in the pharmaceutical industry. Whether you're looking at differentiating embryonic stem cells, or you're looking at the creation of induced pluripotent stem cells, it's still very early days. I think the progress and the rate of progress is amazing, but it just takes time for scientific discovery. Clearly, one of the opportunities that Fate has is the backing from three very well-founded investors, with Venrock, Polaris, and Arch Ventures,